Tracking back through history, there are many remarkable steps us, as human beings, have made. Hieroglyphics, being the oldest form of writing, is one of them. The ancient hieroglyphs are a fascination to many people, including myself. Hieroglyphs are characters in any system of writing in which symbols represent objects and ideas. The ancient Greeks first used the term hieroglyph, meaning the sacred carving, to describe decorative characters carved on Egyptian monuments. The Egyptians' word for hieroglyphs, literally translated as language of gods, indicates their importance. The term is now mainly used to refer to the system of writing used by the ancient Egyptians. Archaeological discoveries suggest that Egyptian hieroglyphs may be the oldest form of writing. The earliest evidence of an Egyptian hieroglyphic system is believed to be from about 3300 or 3200 BC, and the Egyptians used hieroglyphics for the next 300–500 years. The hieroglyphic system used in ancient Egypt had between 700 and 800 basic symbols called glyphs. Unlike most forms of modern language, which is typically read from right or left, ancient Egyptians' hieroglyphics could be read either from the right to left or from left to right. In order to know which direction to begin reading, the scribe would position the figures so that they face in the correct direction. The placement of the Egyptian hieroglyphics alphabetic letters into an eye-pleasing layout was extremely important, exactly how they pronounce hieroglyphic text. When speaking, they may have expressed vowel sounds to distinguish various words that, in writing, look identical. A single symbol had more than 3 different meanings, which could either be phonetic or simply symbolizing the picture itself. They continued using it until around 500 AD, and the language is still the most difficult language to learn. It is said that there were thousands of signs that were used, and many of them were not even used initially. Empty spaces were avoided as much as possible, and to that end, symbols Egyptian art would usually form into squares instead of straight lines. The Egyptians did not use spaces or punctuation, nor did they write vowels, so it is impossible to know. Glyphs are divided into 2 groups. Phonograms, which are glyphs that represent sounds, and ideograms, which are glyphs that represent objects or ideas. The Egyptians constructed words by using a combination of the 2 types of glyphs. Phonograms represented the sound of single consonants, and combinations of consonants, and ideograms could represent either the specific object written or something closely related to it. Before hieroglyphs were widely used in Egypt, it is utilized to describe important happenings and accomplishments of the Egyptian pharaohs. Priests used hieroglyphics to write down prayers, magical texts, and texts related to life after death and worshiping the gods. When preparing their tomb, many people had autobiographies and hieroglyphic guides of the afterward written on the surface of the tomb, walls, and on the inside of the coffins. The Egyptians believed that these texts helped guide the dead through the afterlife. The use of hieroglyphic inscriptions was not limited to religious purposes. Hieroglyphics were also used to write down laws, created letters, stories, and lists of temple offerings and who gave them. Civil officials used them to write royal documents of long-term importance, to record historical events, and to document calculations such as the depth of the Nile River on a specific day of the year. As you can see, hieroglyphs heavily impacted the lives of the Egyptians daily. The hieroglyphs were the form of the communication, and throughout every aspect of their lives they used this writing. Without hieroglyphs, there would Egyptian hieroglyphics evolved considerably over its 4,000 years. There was hieroglyphics. This form of writing was found on papyri and some on monuments. This was nothing but pictures that symbolized some words. It started with symbols for each word, and then the symbols were blended together to form a word. This was the oldest of the scripts that changed with the passing time. Over the time, of course, the writing started to evolve. The next was called hieratic. Hieratic could be referred to as the script hieroglyphics. It was changed gradually within the phases of the ancient language. Hieratic was quicker and an easier form. This was the official script used for the business and administrative purpose for recording historical documents and the documents of scientific and religious nature. Next after hieratic was demotic, which means popular script, or the people's writing. Demotic was the generalized script present during the Hellenistic period. Derived directly from hieratic, it was very cursive script. That made the script very difficult to read and even more difficult to translate. It was used to write legal and commercial matters. The art of hieroglyphic continued to keep changing over time, which then led to the form of Coptic. This was a modified version of the Demotic and was in use during the 1st century AD. The ancient script was basically of two types, namely phonetics and determinative. Most words were made using phonetic signs, followed by a determinative. Some words had more than two determinatives, and the most common words had no determinatives at all. Certain hieroglyphs were arranged either in horizontal lines or in columns. It was read from the left to right and from the upper to the lower in case of columns. The hieroglyphs had no punctuation marks, diversion marks, or spaces in between the words. Hieroglyphs are proven important because it provides in the modern world today an understanding of Egypt's past, how life was, in addition to the knowledge that the early civilization have already developed a civilized way to express themselves in writing in the same way that is deserved as an example of ancient artwork.